Hi, my name is Nora Gelprin. I'm the Director of Sexuality Education and Training at Advocates for Youth. Thanks for joining me to review how to increase personal comfort when teaching sexuality. Oftentimes, people wonder what I mean when I say personal comfort. And we know that when you're teaching sexuality education, it's a pretty unique topic area, and many of us don't walk into the classroom super comfortable addressing the range of issues that will show up in our curriculum. We know it can be defined as an inner sense of calm and confidence related to the sexuality topics that you're teaching. It can often really be connected to how much professional development that you've had, which for many of us is very little. And it can also be connected to your own beliefs or experiences, sometimes from your adolescence and maybe from your adulthood as well. What we do know from the research is that educators who are comfortable teaching about sexuality tend to select a wider range of topics, and those that tend to be a little more controversial. We know that they tend to focus their instruction on skills as opposed to just facts, which we know is critical for young people, and they often feel much more competent and ready to handle student disclosure, which we know is a really common thing to happen as well. Versus those educators who aren't feeling as comfortable, they tend to select the safer topics, the ones that are much more objective and factual. They also select teaching strategies that are a lot less interactive, much more giving of knowledge as opposed to developing critical thinking skills. They really minimize the amount of time spent on sexuality to try to kind of get through it and get it over with. And their discomfort is really easily seen by their students. And you have to worry about a larger message this sends about discomfort with sexuality overall. So, why would some people feel uncomfortable when teaching sexuality? Well, what we know is that many teachers who are asked to teach sexuality education as part of a larger comprehensive health education program often have no training or maybe very little training specific to sexuality, either at the pre service level or during their career while they're teaching in an in service workshop as well. So, they're thrown into the classroom, maybe having no exposure to how to teach about this, knowing it's a very controversial topic area, and they walk in naturally very anxious and worried about how it's all going to go. On the flip side, we know that something as simple as the National Teacher Preparation Standards in Sexuality Education really show us that in standard number one, right up front, and professional disposition, that comfort with the topic is really critical to a teacher's success. We also know that just being a sexpert or being an expert on all things STDs or being, the biggest relationship violence expert in your county is not quite enough. It's not the same as being an effective teacher. So that your personal comfort with the teaching about sexuality is just as important as your comfort with your knowledge about sexuality. We know personal comfort can include a few things. It includes you being comfortable with your own feelings, your own attitudes, which means you need an opportunity to know what those are and have a chance to reflect on those. We know that also translates into displaying respect and acceptance for the feelings and attitudes of all of your students, not those that just have the mainstream beliefs and opinions. We also know that it shows up in your willingness and your ability to communicate about sexuality with ease and with comfort. So then what can you do if you are uncomfortable and you're given the task of teaching sexuality education? There are some really simple things that an educator can do, both individually and at the district level as well. The first would be to attend workshops or conferences, maybe watch a TED Talk or a webinar to just increase your exposure to information and understanding about these issues. It can also really help to observe another educator who is more comfortable or more seasoned in this topic area, see what they do and don't do. You can also talk with your colleagues and your supervisor about the topics or the issues that you do find challenging. And of course, practice, practice, practice. Nothing can replace practicing with a colleague, practicing in the mirror, practicing here in Teach Live. That's one of the reasons why we are such a believer in the ability to practice in safe environments so that when you walk into a classroom, you can feel a little more comfortable with the topics you're addressing. These other things can help as well to really have a chance to reflect on what makes you uncomfortable and why, what's coming up for you, what's really pushing your buttons about whatever that topic is or the issue is that you're addressing. To really be able to be clear about what those boundaries are, and then to be able to ask for help when you know you're not going to be able to move around whatever that discomfort is. That's completely fine. It's also fine to use other educators or maybe outside speakers as a temporary measure until you are able to get more comfortable, maybe by going to an in service workshop or watching a TED Talk or doing some reading on whatever the particular topic is. So I hope some of those suggestions are helpful to you as you navigate your own personal journey to become more comfortable teaching sexuality education.